So a while ago, we did a big deep dive video into everything you should know about Blackmagic Cloud. But we got a lot of really good follow-up questions and comments about that video, and I did get a few things wrong. But in this video, I'm going to address a lot of your questions, mainly the two biggest ones. What do you do with the project once you're done? How do you archive it, move it off the cloud? And how do you get around this issue of being able to sync originals and proxies with multiple editors adding different types of files? I got a hack that'll work. But this is also not just going to come from me. I talked to Blackmagic directly with product specialist Shawn Carlson, where we got a lot of good insight and tips on how Blackmagic Cloud works and some things that we might expect to see in the future. So this is not going to be an in-depth video about how Blackmagic Cloud works. We already did a video on that. So if you're not familiar with Blackmagic Cloud, go check out that video. This video, we're going to address a variety of questions and topics. So some might not be interesting to you. We've got everything chaptered out on the bottom. So just click around to whatever topic you find most interesting or is relevant to you. This is going to be a grab bag of good stuff. All right. So first off, though, let me talk about a few things that have changed or updated since I did the first video. Number one, the biggest update. Blackmagic cut storage pricing in half. This happened in November of last year, 2024. Before, it was about $30 a terabyte for storage. They cut that in half, which is awesome. I don't know anyone else who's like cut pricing in half. So now it is only $15 a terabyte, which makes putting your files on the cloud a lot more accessible. Also kind of ties into what I'm going to talk about in a moment. But overall, just great to see that it is a lot more affordable to have this cloud storage and just opens up new opportunities with workflows when pricing and how much you were going to store on the cloud was a factor. It's a little bit less of a factor now. The other thing that is new is something that I sort of had on my wish list at the end of the last video. And I was like, oh, it'd be nice if they had this. And they sort of are hinting at adding it. Basically a cloud media manager, some way to access our media on the cloud or navigate, kind of see what we've got in a cloud interface, whether that is you, the editor, or whether that is someone else who has access to it. They added a little bit of a feature of that. So let me just jump into Blackmagic Cloud. All right, cloud storage. We can jump in here. If we jump into our media, this is mimicking the cloud storage folder that is on whatever computer imported the footage that is uploading and syncing to the cloud. But if we jump into any of these folders and go into the proxy folder, we can see the media files, but now we can actually scrub and play back, or just scrub. You can't open the full thing, but we can scrub, we can see the media, and also if we click up here in the arrow or in the information tab, we can see metadata about the proxy, but we could also see original metadata about the camera, and we could add notes. But anyways, this is still a good first step because it already has that proxy media in the cloud. So at least you don't have to open up your computer or add a computer, or if you have another user who doesn't have Resolve, they can at least come here. You can't do playback yet, but I'm hoping by seeing this, that is a step forward to another step of being able to do stuff in the cloud, especially non-editorial teams, to navigate or just at least see what kind of media is available and skim through it, give notes, something like that. I don't know. It's a good first step. So just want to address that. Some cool things that have happened since the first video. All right, let me talk about the biggest thing that I got wrong. I said in the first video that if your main computer is set to upload proxies only and your editor B computer is set to proxies and originals, if they add stock footage or whatever, some additional media, because your main computer, you're not going to want to put all your original media on the cloud. That could be terabytes. Your other editor, let's say they add some B-roll, they add some stock footage, it does get uploaded to the cloud. But then there's no way it does not sync. If this is set to proxy only, it does not sync to the computer. I said it does sync, and that's why I really liked it. I don't know. I could have sworn, and when I was doing initial tests, maybe I was working on beta software, so maybe it did do it, or maybe it's just so early I didn't fully understand what was happening. It doesn't do that. I said it did that in the video, and then there were a lot of comments saying, I can't get that to work. You are all correct, and this has happened on our team as well. It does not. If the main computer is set to proxies only, even though the original files are in the cloud, it will not sync to it. I do have a workaround for this. I figured out a hack-ish. It's not elegant, but it is a way to work around this. I'll tell you in a second. But first note, though, there are some files where no matter what type of file it is, it will synchronize the original type of file no matter what. That's mainly still image files and audio files. But I did talk to Shawn about this at Blackmagic, so here's what he has to say about the details of file syncing.
There are file types that will go across anyway, and so that would be, broadcast wave, right? Audio files. ancillary files. So as you've chosen to sync perhaps a directory of content, it could include stills. It can actually include like stacked EXR and OpenDPX files.
Okay, so as far as synchronizing originals, if like another editor added some new B-roll video file clips, not audio, not music, not photos, they added video files. Here's the hack that I figured out. That is a way to get this to kind of work. It's not great, but it works for now. Okay, so let's say I'm on my computer here. I am working off my computer and my original media files are on this hard drive. So this computer was the main A computer in my example that imported the media originally. And this computer is set to just synchronize proxies only because I don't want it to upload all of the original media because it would be a lot of space. So this is my original computer and I have some of my footage here in this bin off this hard drive. Now pretend that I transform somewhere else, but digitally I'm going to swipe to another computer. So this is I'm remotely logged into a PC that's around the corner in the office, but it's a separate computer, but just pretend that is my remote editor. This computer, so you can see here, I'm in this bin, the same bin, but it's showing that I am logged in to the same instance twice. You could also see here on the bottom, it's a PC, and that I'm remotely logged in with Parsec. This one is set to sync proxies and originals. And because the other computer is in this bin, I'm locked out. So I'm going to go up to my media folder, and let's say I'm going to make a new bin, and call it B-roll. And so I'm in this bin, and I add a file. So it's just a random file I have on my computer. It's a short clip from CES, but it's a video file. It applies to our example case. So it's generating the proxy. And we can come over here. We can see it's a small clip, so it happened pretty quick. We can see that it generated the proxy and it also uploaded the original because this one is set to upload originals. And so we have our proxy clip here. And if I turn off proxy, or if I say prefer camera originals, we can see it also has the HQ, the camera original. So we've got both. Obviously, this computer imported it. We have our original media file and our proxy media file, and confirmed it is uploaded to the cloud. Now, if I hop over to my other computer, and if you've done this before, you're like, yes, I know what's going to happen. It's going to resynchronize my bins. I have my new B-roll bin. You've done this before. Look, it's offline. So I have disable all proxies. If I say prefer proxies, it shows me the proxy because it downloaded the proxy from the cloud. But I can't get the original, even though the original is on the cloud. So really annoying, right? Annoying. Okay, so here's the hack that I found. It's not elegant, but basically I'm going to offline everything and then I'm going to force it to sync the originals. So you'd have to quit out Resolve. And then I'm going to say eject. I'm going to eject my drive. The drive is unplugged. I'm going to go back into Resolve. If I go back and show you the same bin, originally and proxies are off, so now everything's offline. Okay. Now if I go back here, and now if I go to my cloud settings, and I go back into the settings, and I say sync proxies and original, and I save it, it is now forcing the sync, and I got the original clip. It downloaded it. So this is the workaround that I found. If we're towards the end of the edit, the editor added new media files, new B-roll, new stuff that we sent or whatever that is up on the cloud. This is the only workaround that I have found to make all of our lives easier and synchronize from the cloud. I mean, the alternative is, and we have done this before, where it's like, okay, the editor then uploads everything to Frame.io of the new stuff they added, and then I download it, and then I put it on my NAS, and then I sync it. It's annoying because it's like, it's on the cloud. Just give me from the cloud. So yeah, that's the workaround. That's the hack. It's more annoying with the NAS because I got to offline the whole virtual drive and then do this and then sync it. But it works and it's better than sending separate files. Hopefully that they will add more granular control over what you can and upload and download with proxies, especially NAB's coming up in a few months. But here's what Shawn had to say when we talked about the sync issue and making this better in the future.
In the future, it's possible that, as the product grows and as we start to, modify it and add features, it's quite likely that we're going to get to, a greater degree of granularity in that regard.
Next up, probably the number one comment question was, how do you delete or archive a project from the cloud? Once you're done with a project, how do you get your stuff off the cloud and store it offline or however you want to store it, but free up your cloud space and just kind of move it off the cloud. This is also complicated a bit because there are a few things happening here. So we've got the cloud project libraries, which is our project library. It has all of our projects. That is what we pay about $5 a month for. And that has all of our project files. It doesn't do anything with the media. So that's one aspect. And then we have our media files in our cloud storage. That's the thing that is $15 a terabyte a month. That's where our proxies are stored, or our original media files are stored, or if you synchronize your camera with Blackmagic Cloud, that's where the media goes from your camera to the cloud. It is sort of connected. You can see here it's connected or linked to the project libraries, but it's a separate storage element. So we have two storage elements going on here. We've got our project libraries and our cloud storage with our media. And they're two separate things, and they're two separate things you got to deal with to archive/delete. So the thing to keep in mind is if we are done with a project, let's go over to Resolve. Let's go over here. And if we're like, okay, I'm done with this project, let me delete it. I'm not saying that's the first step, but let me say you deleted it off of the cloud. It will just delete the project library. It will not do anything with the media. So if I were to delete this project here, the AI video camera project, and then I come back over here to my cloud storage and I go to AI video project and I have all of my proxies or whatever media I uploaded, absolutely nothing would happen to this. This media would still be here. So that's where things get really confusing as well, because it's like, well, you can delete your project library, but your cloud media will still exist. So the short answer, if you're already aware of this or like what to do about this, there is no simple archive click button. There's a couple steps here we got to do if you're ready to archive your project. So yeah, there's kind of a checklist of steps and stuff you got to do. So we're going to put a checklist up right here and let's go work through it. Step one is, first off, you want to archive your project. So you want to take your project and all of your media and you want to store it somewhere offline, but make sure that you have everything together, because we could have elements that were already on a hard drive, but then we could also have new elements that came in from another editor from the cloud and are now synchronized in our cloud sync folder on our computer. So for me, a lot of media is either here or it is on our Synology NAS. But then when editors add additional things, my sync folder for my cloud projects is here, which this is normally a bunch of aliases or links to other files. But if an editor adds an original file, it's going to get synchronized to here, and it's not going to be on this drive. So you want to make sure all of your media before you start deleting stuff is consolidated and stored in a spot where if you need to restore this project, you have all the media that you need. So for that, that's a pretty typical process. If you're familiar with Resolve, you would just come over here to your project, right click, and then you could either say export project, which will just give us the project file. It won't give us any of the media, or export project archive, which gives you the option to include all of your media files, all of your proxy files, all of your cache files if you want to do that. Okay, so you've exported and you made sure all of your media is consolidated onto a drive or wherever you are archiving or storing your footage. An additional step you can do, Shawn recommended this, is you can also go back into Resolve. You don't have to go into that specific project because you can access this from any project, but you would go into Playback, Manage Render Cache, and then you can see all of your cache files from all of your projects and locations. So you can see if you have your local or your cloud projects and how much cache storage they are taking. And you can delete the cache. So he recommended doing this before deleting the project just to clear out some additional space. But you could also do this after the fact, because you can manage cache in any project. You could also just go in and click delete project cache. So that's sort of an optional step just to clear off some space from your computer. So let's say now I did archive this project, I cleared the cache. Now make sure you close out of the project first, and then you can go over here and you can delete the actual project library. I'm not going to delete it yet because I did not confirm all the backups and all that stuff, but you come here, delete it. And then if you didn't want to open it or check or whatever, you can come to local. Maybe you do this before you actually delete your project library, but you could come in here and import the archive that you created and confirm that everything still works. And then you can come back to cloud and delete your project library. So you delete your project library, but again, that is one element of what you have to do because all of the media files in the cloud will still be there. So then part 2, or part wherever we are on this checklist. So to clear the media off of Blackmagic Cloud storage, you have to go to the website. There's no other way to do this. You can't do this from inside Resolve. So you can either just go directly to the website, or if you're in Resolve, you can click the Go to Blackmagic Cloud button, and I am logged in. And then again, if this opens up and you don't see anything that looks familiar, double check up here that you are in fact in the organization, if you are connected to an organization versus being in your personal space. Always the number one issue when things don't show up. So I'm over here, and now I've got to, well, and then another tricky thing, it just opened me in the project server section, which is not what I want. I want to go over here to the file section. So cloud storage, purple icon, project library section is mimicked. Come over to the project library. And now I can find the folder name with the project that I just deleted / archived. Come over here, click the folder, click the triple dots, and then click delete. And that is how you delete the media from the cloud. So this will delete and clear up the cloud space. I'm not going to do that because I have not confirmed that I backed up everything yet, but you come over here and delete that. You could also come in to the folder, and if you want to kind of more granularly check everything before you start deleting, you can come in and start deleting items or reviewing items and doing it on a more case-by-case basis. So you can do batch selection. You can see I selected 3 video files, and you can delete individually if you want a little bit more granular control over deleting. So that is sort of whatever, step 3, step 4. We deleted it from the cloud. And then the last step would be everyone who's used this project file has to delete it from their computer. And so this is a little bit of a, I think, prevention or issue as far as bigger adoption for higher profile pictures or pictures where security is kind of important, because anyone who has access to the project file, the files they're downloading, even if they're proxies, they could be sensitive. So you got to make sure that it's projects that, it's okay that people have access to some form of the original files on their computer. Maybe in the future, it'd be nice if they added a way to watermark the proxies that are generated so they're unique to each user that accesses them. Could be a nice, cool future. But as of right now, keep in mind, everyone has a local copy of whatever proxy files were in that project. And so it's up to them. They got to go in and go to wherever that folder was stored on their computer and delete that off their computer to free up that space. So to recap the checklist, you want to build up a project archive, export your project off of the cloud, either as a project export or an archive project, which will gather all of the media files and store it into a central location. Optional, you can clear your cache inside Resolve to delete all those cache files. Then once your project's archived, and if you verified it, if you wanted to or not, the archive was successful, inside Resolve, go to your project library and then delete that project from your cloud storage. So the project library is now deleted off of Resolve, but the media is still on Blackmagic Cloud. So you got to go to Blackmagic Cloud website, go find the project library in cloud storage, go find the folder name that matches the project library that you just deleted, and then delete that folder. Or if you want a more granular control, you can go into that folder and delete individual files. And then finally, you have to go into your computer and delete the local cloud storage files, and anyone else who had access to it has to go in and delete the files from their computer to free up the space. So it's a multi-step process. Hopefully that'll be a little bit more streamlined in the future, but that is the way as of right now of how to delete or archive a complete project and all the media off of Blackmagic Cloud. So those are the 2 big kind of main questions that came up. This other stuff is sort of a grab bag of things we discovered, things we found, and that we're doing just to sort of help out or understand how Blackmagic Cloud works better. Templates, export presets, all of the sort of settings or things that you set, change, it's on a cloud library basis. We have 5 cloud libraries right now. Whatever presets, if we set up an export preset, if we set up a default project preset, it will, if we make a new project in that cloud, in that project library, it will honor the same presets, it will remember everything. But then if I make a new project library, it sets it to default or resets it. So I started building up a template project basically of presets and other elements that we sort of reuse a lot. So if we start a new project library for a new client, we have a project to start of bring in all of our presets and stuff to spin it up, because right now we're sort of rebuilding everything. So that was something to keep in mind. Every time you launch a new project library, a cloud project library, it sets everything to default. So you got to bring in your presets, whatever presets you might have saved from previous libraries. Other question, this one came up a bit in the comments, and this was something I was a little bit fuzzy on in my previous video, dedicated server. So when you go to Blackmagic Cloud and you want to say, oh, I want to start a new server, if we're in the organization and we want to say, okay, I want to add a new project server, you get the option where you could buy a dedicated server. And I was a little bit fuzzy of like what that meant exactly, but it's actually a really good deal, and we might potentially switch to it in the future. But here's my conversation with Shawn about what it entails. What do you get with a dedicated server and what's the difference?
Asking this question of the dev team recently, the answers that I got, this is configurable, but it's just a separate way of ensuring that, all of the bandwidth available, resources, RAM, right? Everything required to operate and to serve that library to your organization and the members that you've added to it. It's just an exclusive way of essentially giving yourself completely separate server to operate.
I'm just like pricing breakdown. Like if you get I know the small one was like, the starting one was like $100 a month. And
Right,
I think
exactly.
you just said it could have up to 20, like around 20 project libraries, but it's $100 plus if you had 20 project libraries, then you're paying 5 times 20.
No,
Plus
actually,
the
that
100,
includes
or
it.
do you get you get 20 project libraries in your
In this case, you would actually get 50. You get 50 libraries with up to 20 collaborators on it.
oh, so that's actually a pretty good
50
deal.
libraries
if you
50 times 5, right? Would be the equivalent of what your library costs are, but this is a dedicated server.
Oh, okay. So if you're doing a lot of project libraries, this sounds like a better deal.
It is if you are running, say, a facility, and you're definitely I liken this to maybe the work of like a small commercial shop, and they're going to have a dozen or 15 or 20 different customers, and each customer is going to need to have their own library so that it has its own collaborators and they never cross-pollinate. You might have internally, your facility might have workers that are working across multiple clients, but in every case, they're going to move to the library where their client's media is and their projects are so that they stay separated from each other. Just, for whatever the security layer is that you require in that case, it would at least be, organized by client in that case. And so a dedicated small project server with 50 libraries would give you access to, a library internal for your internal work, and to share, a library external for only remote collaborators to join in on some projects that you externally do, and then a library for every client if you wanted to maintain that, so that you could have some client relations or stakeholders, producers who could join in and see projects as they're working. That kind of thing is even an option too. But you're right, that's probably a better value if you know in advance that you're going to need a number of libraries, because 20 users and 50 libraries is $100 a month in that small dedicated server.
So yeah, as in my chat with Shawn, you see that basically you get, if you buy the smaller capacity, which says up to 50 project libraries, you get 50 project libraries, or you can launch 50 project libraries on your own sort of dedicated server space that they have, and you can pick the region that you want. So that is about that is $2 a month per project library, which is a lot less than the $5 a month. So if you're doing a lot of project libraries, I found that it probably does get better to have the project library split per client. So if we add any freelancers, they just have access to media for that client. They don't have access to like other client media and stuff. So yeah, this definitely is in that realm of you want to kind of keep things a little bit more private and secure. But it does go back to my original note where like anyone who does have access to a project, they are going to get the proxies, which are pretty good quality. And I guess you could watermark it on your own, but yeah, it would be nice in the future if there was some extra watermarking security stuff to watermark things, especially if you could watermark it with a username of once they download or have access to the project files. But yeah, that's great to see. This also ties into though, because like we were building out our project libraries, and if I did want to switch to the dedicated server, I know as of right now, there would be no easy way for me to migrate and be like, oh, well, take my Blackmagic Cloud project libraries and just like, push them to the dedicated server. I know that there is no way that that exists right now. So I would have to export every single project from each project library individually and then re-import it into the new dedicated server that we would have to rebuild with our new project library structure. So migration, moving stuff around, that's also still kind of a pain right now. There's no quick and easy ways to migrate things between different servers or different project libraries. And then another question that came up too is the location. So in the region section here, you have a handful of region options of where you want the servers to be. And on our team, we have experienced a few slow issues. Usually the speed issue comes into play for opening a project for the day, whenever you're like loading up, or just not for the first time, but just opening a project. It comes down to, and according to Blackmagic, it comes down to your internet connection speed. Our editors have had solid, good speed. I've had issues if I'm like on hotel Wi-Fi and I try to open a project. Sometimes that opening that project library can take 5 to 10 minutes if I'm on crappy internet. So that's one factor. But the other factor too is where the server is located. And so talking with Shawn, here's some of his advice on where you should pick your server location.
So wherever editorial is, that's where I would like to be as close to the editor as possible with the server, just for the most interaction, because that's where we're actually going to be interacting the most, right?
So yeah, basically pick the server location wherever is geographically closest to the person who's going to be editing in the project the most. For us, California still made the most sense, but for you, it might make sense for hosting it somewhere else. I would say there are some weird, it hasn't happened recently, so it could have been some beta issues or whatever, but we have had some speed issues off and on in the past, but for the most part, usually speed isn't an issue, but this is just something to keep in mind when you're picking your server location. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are the kind of grab bag of new things we discovered inside Blackmagic Cloud. Luckily, I mean, stuff's always changing all the time, so there could be new additional features. NAB's happening in a few months. I'm sure we'll see some more updates there. But overall, even despite some of the hiccups and stuff, it has still been phenomenal and the smoothest remote collaboration experience that I have dealt with across any NLE, any editing platform or tools. So still a huge fan of Blackmagic Cloud. Excited to see what other updates they have coming in the future. If you've got any other questions, anything else comes up for you, love to see the comments, love to hear the questions and stuff that you've got. I'm glad the first video has been a big help to a lot of people. So I hope this was helpful as well to you. And big thank you to Shawn and the Blackmagic team for helping set up the interview and sharing some of their insights on Blackmagic Cloud. And it's kind of new for a lot of us, as even people on the Blackmagic team. So we're all kind of figuring out the best way and the best workflows. And great to hear that they're open to feedback and stuff. So I'm sure this will only get better in the future. Thanks a lot for watching. I will catch you in the next episode.